The Backdoor GAA Podcast for 2023 is now brought to you by Steede Motor Group. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, visit steedemotorgroup.ie. We are now delighted to announce our second sponsor of the podcast. Harper Finlay are a professional service recruitment company operating nationwide and are dedicated to helping people find their dream job.
So delighted now to be joined by former Turlough Senior Hurling Manager Joe Hession and current Liam Meadows Senior Hurling Manager Ryan O'Dwyer to look back on Galway's draw with Dublin over the weekend and also look ahead to this weekend's minor final between Galway and Clare in Thurles on Sunday at 1 o'clock, that game being shown live on TG Card. Galway Dublin, a draw in the end. Galway progressed to the Leinster final against Kilkenny. Joe, still finding it hard to wrap my head around this game.
Yeah, I think we all are, Paul. Yeah, a game of two halves or even a game of 50 minutes and 20 minutes. But yeah, well, I suppose for supporters and that, it was probably hard to see that first half performance in Galway, you know. But, you know, you have to give credit to Dublin for the way they approached the game and the way their management, who would have known Galway inside out, set up, you know. You could see their plan was to move us around the pitch a little bit and maybe force our half-back line to turn and defend, something that probably hadn't been done in the championship to date. And they took us on in the flanks. You know, I think it was notable that they kept the ball away from Daithí Burke, which I think, you know, would have made a lot of sense if you're Micheál, Noel and Franny, that you would see the dominance he has and the leadership he has on the ball. So, and it worked, you know, and then that culminated with Galway making some errors that you wouldn't associate with Galway, or even at inter-county level. You know, Aina and goal probably caught in two minds, you know, to catch a ball, it ends up in the net, and TJ gave a loose pass, and that's 2 goals, and that's 6 points. That's very, very hard inter-county level to come back from. But, you know, they did, you know, and despite missing a penalty and all that. But come back to the first half, you could imagine Henry, you know, you could see him on the line. He was frustrated, he was angry. Wouldn't be what he was expecting or wished for, but you know, the beauty of it was that it happened in the first half. They had 35 minutes to rectify it, regardless of whether they came back and won or drew. They needed a response, and I suppose he got that with the subs he introduced and a bit of energy, but certainly wouldn't be happy, and it's a big stick to beat them with for the next 2 weeks going into the Leinster final.
As a manager there, Joe, is that where you just have to kind of lose it at half time when a performance like that?
You do, Paul. There is that. You have to get stuff off your chest and let lads know, you know, some home truths. But at the same time, you also need to spot where the changes need to be made and where things need to be fixed, you know, and how to get key players into the game. And, you know, obviously you know as well that a team won't dominate you for a full 70 minutes. And I think, Ryan, you played at that level. You know, no team will stay on top for that length of period. So when you do get your purple patch, you've got to get your key players on the ball. And I think Galway fair use them. Joseph Cooney was on the ball, Daithí was on the ball, Jason Flynn came in, he contributed, Sean and Ann. You know, things started to happen. But I'd say Henry was probably had to give a team talk that he probably hadn't had to give these guys before, you know. And like, Henry's coming from Kilkenny, where, like, I would imagine he was always self-motivated. Like, some of the Galway lads probably do need, you know, a little bit of a revving up or whatnot. And that's what I'm saying. The next 2 weeks in training, I would imagine Henry's beating these guys with a stick. But whatever he said worked. And again, I go back to the subs. The energy he got from those was certainly a help as well.
Ryan, I was watching the game, and I think the first 2 minutes, Galway took 3 or 4 shots. They went short, they went wide. There was no score on the board. Kind of nearly set the trend for that opening half.
Yeah, it certainly did. And like, who they were leaning heavily on for the first half was Joseph Cooney. Like, he scored 4 points from play from midfield. Now he dropped 1 or 2 wide as well. But like, what they scored half time, they only had 12 points scored, and he scored 4 of them. And then the other 4 were Evan Nyland frees. So, you know, it shows that they were relying heavily on 2 lads, which at inter-county level, you need more. And look, Joe, I know you said there was a lot of errors from a Galway point of view, but I think the intensity that Dublin were playing in the first half, I think a lot of them were forced errors. No, the pass across the goal and the mistake by Ian and Murphy, it looked like there's no real excuses for them. They were just headless decisions. But throughout the field, even if a Galway lad was getting to the ball first, it was just a Dublin lad up their back and just getting on the ball, tipping it away, running into the space and getting it and moving it. And the support play that Dublin had in the first half, like, geez, it was a joy to behold. I was up high looking at it now, and geez, it was brilliant, and I was so excited. At half time, I did say it'll be interesting to see can they keep this up for the second period, and like, unfortunately, yeah, I know maybe I'm speaking to a Galway crowd here, but unfortunately, they only scored 6 points in the second half. You know, and even at that, 2 of them were very late. They only had 4 points scored. Up until the 69th minute, they only had 4 points scored in the second half. So yeah, look, they put in a great performance, but if you're serious about being competitive at senior intercounty, you have to score more than 6 points in a half of hurling. You know.
Just on that, Ryan, there was a stats page on Twitter. I can't actually remember the name of it now, but they had kind of stats up of Galway, Dublin, and the opening half, and there was a particular stat around the middle third where Dublin had 8 players in the middle third, Galway had 6. Did it just?
The space was unbelievable. Like you and I know I interrupted there, but like if you look, like I said, I was up high, I was looking down at it, and there was times when there was literally 3 Galway men in the Galway half and 2 Dublin men, and everyone else had retreated to the Dublin half. And that didn't just happen the last minute or two when Galway were looking for a score. That was a constant factor throughout the game. And even look, you could say at the other end as well. You're speaking about the middle of the field, and especially in the first half, between, we'll say, 10 yards each side of the 65s, right? There was except for the 2 goalkeepers, there was only about 4 players outside that at various times during the game. So it showed that both teams were bringing that battle to the 65, and whoever won that battle came out on top. And in the first half, Dublin certainly won it. But in the second half, I think that the biggest thing in the second half was no return from Dublin puck outs. Every puck out. And I don't know, look, I think there's a few things at play here. I think where Dublin running out of steam, or where Galway just more physical underneath the ball. Because look, it's a very new Dublin setup. You know, there's only a few household names there, so a lot of those lads are still growing. They're still bulking on a few pounds. So it'll be interesting in a couple of years. Will they fall away as easy, or get pushed off the ball going up for it as easy as they did at the weekend? I know Danny Sutcliffe caught a few puck outs there in the second half, but apart from him, there were very few and far between.
Joe, on that middle third area, because it's quite simply Dublin won that in the first half, but did that just quite simply come down from having more numbers in the middle third, creating the overlaps? And as you said, they were keeping the ball away from Daithí Burke, but you could tell at times they weren't really playing with an outlet inside. They were looking to move most of the ball through the hands and just pull the Galway backs all around the place.
Yeah, I think that was it. I think they spotted maybe that if they could move our 2 wing backs out the field a small bit, you know, they probably had the legs on them. It looked to me that's the way they wanted to go. They wanted to take them on down the flanks. They wanted to turn them and get them going back towards goal. And they also wanted to create a gap between Daithí and Garage, you know, and play the ball in front and let Garage come out one-on-one and see where that got them. Yeah, it was so hard to pinpoint. As Ryan said, they got the numbers on the ball, but they were able, like, when they did get the guys in the middle third, they used them. It wasn't a case of just getting the guys in there being physical. They gave the guys ball, but the thing for Galway is that these guys were free, and I think part of that goes back to the games Galway played previously. Like against Antrim, I was at that game to see them. Galway had 2 sweepers. You know, Daithí and Pádraig were sweeping for most of the game. I think they went from that game straight into the Dublin game, and the communication levels weren't good enough. And I think they were looking at each other to see who'd step out and who'd stay back. Dahi obviously at 6 felt, well, I'd stay. And Pádraig doesn't like to push out to the middle of the field. So I think for long periods they got caught. And I think communication let them down a small bit on that as well, that they allowed Dublin to drop into the middle third. And we probably didn't pick them. Now, as a half back line, you don't want to be engaged and come up there, but that's where you talk to your half forward line and get them to come back. And that did start to happen, because I know we've seen Conor Cooney back and wing back and cornerback at stages in the game, but I think Dublin used the ball very smart in that area. They gave it to the spare man that got into that area every time, and they got the shots off or the delivery in.
I think it was the pace that they were doing that as well. Like any time a Dublin man got the ball in that space, there was a Dublin man not just looking for the ball, but they were running at pace. It was nearly like it was drilled into them that when someone has a ball, you need to sprint 30 yards, make sure you run past them, and then whatever, give a pass or strike in. But what they did a lot in the first half, like Hino Sullivan caused serious problem in the first half, because it was massive amount of space. The ball is played in. He's very quick. He at times he started behind Gerard McInerney, but he got to the ball first, and most of the times he turned. He got the ball. When he got the ball, he turned and he took him on, and he got the goal from that. Now he was going for a point and it was a bad strike, but he got the goal from that and could have got more. I thought in the second half, ball went in a couple of times, and I think Gerard McInerney. I'm probably wearing my Dublin hat here, but I think he fouled him a bit. And could easily have got a free, but he ended up getting the ball and working it out. But look, one of those decisions, if he got a free, it would certainly have put doubt in Gerard's head and would have been a point for Dublin the way Dahi Burke hits him. Or said, with Donald working in.
Yeah. I think as well, I think that Garage likes Dahi being close to him. And I know from club that Dahi likes to sit as close as he can to protect the full back line. And I think the way Dublin set up in the first half pulled Dahi out, and that was their intention, because they wanted to get one-on-ones with Garage, and it reached huge benefits, because I had seen it against Antrim, and Garage mopped it up all day on a 1v1, but he also had Dahi in front of him, so he was able to drive his man and the ball out in front. But that wasn't there on Sunday, because Dahi was engaged elsewhere, and it was massive kudos to the Dublin management. They knew what it was about,
And you saw that he got his goal. How often you see Dahi Burke in the full forward line?
I counted against Antrim, right? He made that run 6 times against Antrim. Now he did that because he was a sweeper, and he could go. But 6 times he did it against Antrim. He didn't get any pass, because they didn't need to pass to him. They were popping it over the bar, and the scores were on. But he continued that the last day, and they needed that. They were coming unstuck before, up to that goal. They really were.
And this is just a question now and off the wall. Who are you more comfortable? Would you have Gerard McInerney fullback and Dahi Burke centre back, or would you have Dahi Burke fullback and Gerard centre back?
I've had this chat with Paul before, and for me it's Dahi, and I name my colours to him. The reason being is his ball to the forwards is second to none. His passing, the speed at which he does it, and the accuracy is much probably sharper and more clinical than Garage. Even though
you'd have Dahi centre back.
Dahi 6 all day long. Yeah. I think I just think his reading of the game, his dominance, Garage gives you that as well. But for me, the big thing is his delivery of the ball to the forwards. I think if you sat down and went through all the games, right, and looked at the amount of times Dahi played the ball into the forwards, I would safely say 90 to 95% of it is going to a Galway player's hand, and that's what killed us probably the last day a little bit, is that he wasn't on the ball to be given those passes,
And look, most teams, their best player is going to be the centre back. But just I suppose looking at it from a different point of view, you just feel so confident with him fullback.
Micheál Dunne, who built his All-Ireland winning team on probably Dahi at fullback. We don't concede goals, we'll outscore everyone else. And that worked. It certainly worked. Why go away from it? There's pros and cons, definitely. Is. Garage has never done anything wrong at 6. Never has. And even at 3, he's been fine as well. And I just think I'd say Dahi's nearly a quarterback, that can pick this pass, Now, if he's not on the ball, there's merits to be saying, well,
Yeah, and look, he's a very intelligent hurler, and he plays it. It's going to sound bad now, but it's not. I mean, there's a comment. He plays it at a slower pace, or it appears to be at a slower pace because he's just comfortable. Yeah. Similar to Donald Burke. Donald Burke, you look at Donald Burke and you say, oh, geez, he's a slow striker. He has to get hooked or blocked. But like Dermot Connolly playing football, he controls the tempo.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I understand your argument. You usually have your best hurler centre back, but just he's so confident fullback that it's hard
the safety he brings. And look at that, we really only know that as we go deeper into the championship, won't we?
When more questions are going to be asked.
When there's more questions going to be asked, you'll really get the truth to that, really, because he, like, for 35 minutes against Dublin, he was, he didn't get a lot of ball, and that was down to the management. If other managements do the same ploy, then Dahi's worth at centre back really isn't, what I'm thinking it is,
Yeah. Well, like, if you're in Kilkenny and preparing for Galway next year, you're going to look at the Dublin game and say, right, well, this is how Dublin dealt with Dahi Burke. We'll do something similar.
Yeah.
Just on, it's obviously a very conflicting argument between Dahi and Garage, but the ball Dahi came out in the second half, and some of the ball he got was just tremendous, and he obviously got man of the match. Was it his best performance in a Galway jersey for you, Joe?
Certainly one of them. In saying that, I thought probably Joseph Cooney might have felt a little bit aggrieved not to get man of the match as well, but I think for probably leadership, Dahi probably just shaded a small bit. That was the verdict of the RT guys. But it was certainly one of his best games. Certainly was. He's had an enormous amount of games. But Ryan is right. He had some outstanding games at fullback. In victories and defeats. But Sunday was right up there. I think it was a different type of game. It was a game where he needed to do something different, and that was shown in the goal. He took a chance and went forward. He spotted there was no one on him. He had a bit of space. There was cover at the back. And that's what the good players do. They know when to go. They know when there's cover. They know when not to go when there's no cover. But he does that. It's just an instinct. And it could come back to his football and playing as well. He's just able to read a game. But for getting that goal and making that run and those balls he came out with, I suppose it certainly was a game that Galway needed him to be as good as he was, because I think if he wasn't, I think Dublin would have won that game.
Ryan, earlier there was obviously, we had the debate there about GMAC and Dahi, who do you play at 3 and 6, but another player up front that there's now probably a conundrum for Galway, Conor Whelan. He was nullified the last day, but I don't think people realise this. He was on Paddy Smith. Paddy Smith is underrated man makers. The week before that, he done a terrific job on TJ Reid.
Well, I certainly don't underrate Paddy Smith. I've seen him since minor. I saw him when he came onto the Dublin panel first. He was actually doing his leaving cert. So I certainly don't underestimate him. He's brilliant. He's brilliant. And if he was in Limerick, or if he was Cork or Tip or Kilkenny or Galway, he probably would have had an all-star already. He is that good, and Dublin are very, very lucky to have O'Neill and Paddy Smith in the full back line. Like, two solid lads that keep it simple and don't let their egos get in the way, or just do the simple things and do them right. So yeah, look, Whelan didn't get at him last day. He didn't score from play. I don't think. Just looking at my scores.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't score from play at all.
You'd have to question the supply into him as well, Ryan, wouldn't you?
You would, but even balls that went in there that he was fighting for, a 50-50 ball that he was fighting for, he came out second best.
Yeah.
And even at that one, Paddy Smith caught me off guard because he changed to a red helmet, and usually I associate him with the black, so I was off guard for a while. But look, Paddy Smith won that battle. Conor Whelan, if you don't play him full forward, like, the question is, where do you play him? And I want settling the team, trying to get him into the game. If you put him out to the, like, you're right, he's full forward now, but if you put him out to the wing, to get him into the game. Are you unsettling Conor Cooney? Are you unsettling Roland Lennon? You know, they might have had the best games the weekend, but if you go back the last couple of games, I thought they played very well the last couple of games. So, yeah, obviously you want to get him into it. Do you just create more space in there? And is it a case of matchups again? You might start him in the corner because a certain person is in the corner, or tailor your game plan to because he does have speed to burn. But look, Paddy Smith's not the quickest, but he bet him out to all the balls. Paddy just started earlier. But yeah, look, it certainly is a good question, Paul. What do you do to get the best out of Conor Whelan? But I think the question has to be asked, right? Do you stick with him full forward? He mightn't be up against Paddy Smith the next day, or do you move him? But that could unsettle the team elsewhere.
It's just because they're playing Kilkenny next, and Hugh Lawler is someone who's got the better of him too. So is this now where you have to think of something else?
Yeah. Do you start someone else in full forward? Like I said, do you play him on the wing? Do you possibly start him in the corner? Look, Kilkenny, and I know we probably associate Kilkenny still with Brian Cody, but Derek Ling is Brian Cody's disciple. As regards playing a two-man full forward line or dropping Conor Whelan out to the half forward line or anything like that, that's not a Kilkenny thing. Like Kilkenny traditionally and presently try to keep it simple. You know, they'll physically match up with you, and they'll play the game the way it's been played. So you have to say, is Conor Whelan going to play at 14? Is he going to play at 12, at 10? I don't know. But look, Conor Whelan does have the motivation there. If Hugh Lawler has got the better, it's a mental game. If Hugh Lawler has got the better of him in the past, now if he's worth his salt, he should go out with that attitude of, well, I'm going to show you how good I am. I don't care if you've bet me before, I'm going to beat you today.
What do you do there, Joe?
Yeah, sometimes Ryan will know this better than anyone who, at that level, but sometimes a change can do a player the world of good. But my concern is who goes in there. You know, Conor, he got 2 goals against Antrim. He created a good bit. He scored a couple of goals against Westmeath. I know they're lesser opposition, but he's an eye for goal, and I think Galway need at least 1 or 2 goals every day they go out. They'll hit 24, 25 points, but I think you need a goal with that. So you want to get him into the game, but Ryan is right. Like, what's the benefit to the whole team? In doing that, you know.
And well, I'll tell you, I was surprised not to see Brian Concannon then the last day. Now I know he came on, and I thought he played very well when he came on. He won a few frees and ran at him, and he always got the feeling he was going to hurt someone when he was there doing it. But I was surprised he didn't start. Will he start against Kilkenny? I'd certainly have him starting against Kilkenny because physically he will bring it, and he's well able to hurl as well. Jason Flynn, I think, he nearly has taken up the subs mantle now, and he'll come in for 20 minutes. But you know, the pace that he brings to it, it certainly could challenge Kilkenny, because Kilkenny are not the fastest team yet. They're all brilliant, well able to hurl, and they're all very physical, but not the fastest of teams.
Yeah, go back to Conor. Like I wouldn't have an issue with seeing him at 11. I know Evan has started there or whatnot, but I just think it changed like that. And I go back to Brian Concannon. Like, Brian Concannon hit 1-4 for Clare, if not 1-5 for Clare against Kilkenny down in Northern Park. So they certainly need him on the pitch come Leinster final. I know he was coming back from injury, so maybe that was the reason he didn't start the last year or whatnot. But I certainly think then, you know, the next 2 weeks are huge that he comes through and is able to start the Leinster final, because he has that bit of aggression, bit of steel, but also the little bit of class when he's on, that he can score 3 or 4 points and rattle in a goal, you know, and that takes the pressure off Conor Whelan as well. And both of them play very well together. There's a knowledge there, you know, where they know where each other is and who's making the runs and stuff like that. And Ryan, you know, that takes time to get right, and those guys have it. So having the two of them firing is certainly key if we want to win a Leinster final, if Galway want to win the Leinster final.
Yeah, and you're talking there about putting on a wheeling out centre forward. And yeah, it could work, but I like the Evan Nyland approach, because if you're centre back marking him, he would wreck your head, because he doesn't stay.
Yeah.
He doesn't stay there. And in fairness, Galway are playing to that way. They're not just launching the ball down and having the 6 sweep it up.
Yeah.
The 6 has to decide, right, well, I'm moving left and right, and I'm leaving the centre empty.
Yeah. And I think that's where Kevin Cooney got the joy as well. The last days that Evan was moving left, right, and Kevin was able to fall into pockets of space created in the first half.
Yeah.
That's I agree. I think Evan, the last 15 minutes of the first half, Evan was more influential in the game as well. He was getting on ball. He's a good guy to show for a ball coming from the half back line. So yeah, you're messing with a lot if you do try to fit certain guys in.
Yeah, and look, he scored 3 out of the last 4 points from play for Galway the other day, and those 4 points were probably in the last 6 minutes.
Just on that, because a lot of the subs made a big impact in the game. Jason Flynn, Sean Lennon, like all these lads made a major impact for Galway and really turned that game. Can you make a lot of changes now, Ryan? Or does, like, say if Henry was to make 5 or 6 changes for Kilkenny and kind of rip up the script a bit and bring in some players, can that affect the team, or can these changes be made, or does that kind of affect a consistency and the style of how the team will play?
Well, I think it's very easy for us to say who should be starting, who shouldn't be starting. We don't see what's going on at training. It's only the management team see that. As regards your original question about bringing in lads, I'm going to borrow a phrase that Babs Keaton got in trouble for saying against Cork years ago, but it's a case of horses for courses. And you see, what am I playing against? Am I playing against a team that are really fast? Well, then this is who I'm going to play. Or am I playing against Kilkenny, which are going to be very physical? Well, look, no disrespect to anyone. Look, they're much better than I ever was, but like Liam Collins, he wouldn't look out of place at an under 14 county trial. Like he's very small. Now he's brilliant. He is absolutely brilliant, and he's going to be better when he gets older and it fills out a bit. But like you put him out on Hugh Lawler, for example, or Parag Walsh, it's man against boys. Now look, I think when the game opens up and a bit of space there, I think no one better to come in like Liam Collins and Donald O'Shea even coming in, because they can score from any angle. But I think when you're going out against Kilkenny, you need to match them physically. You need to match them with aggression. So I think the likes of Brian Concannon, TJ Brennan, they coming in the last day. I know he wasn't named to start, but he did start. Like the likes of them is what you need.
What would you do now, Joe? Like, do you make the changes? Because Henry obviously said that performance wasn't good enough in the first half.
Yeah, I think Henry's wise enough and old enough. He's saying that he's looking for a response in training this week, and next week. I don't think he'll obviously some players won't be happy with how they performed, and they'll go back into training. They'll know that. They won't need to be told. And Henry look for a response this week, especially. They probably had a light enough session tonight, maybe, and they're probably going to go hard Thursday or Friday, maybe a game in training Sunday or whatever it is. But they were the 2 sessions, and maybe next Tuesday, that he's looking for a response, and he'll know if guys have taken on board their poor performance and if and stuff like that. But I don't think there'll be wholesale changes. I think maybe 2. Maybe Jack Grealish could come in instead of TJ. Just that could happen. Sean and Ann at wing back, it worked. It's not his position where he's learned his trade, but he's like for like with Fenton. I think I did feel for Fenton this moment. I think Fenton started to get Antrim and he went off with a blood injury or a head injury probably after 15 minutes, and that was his first game I think he started. So he came in with very little game time, so, and probably got stuck to the ground a small bit in that and double targeted that as well and went at him. Sean came in and steadied things, definitely an option again. Jason Flynn added a bit of energy, but Jason's been around the panel a long time, and Ryan has said it, he seems to fall into the sub coming on role, and there's an impact from him. If there is, that's probably the role you give him. I think Brian Concannon will start. I think, that's a given. I think he has to, and I think Jack Grealish will start. There'll be 2 changes. After that, I don't know there'll be many more, to be honest. I think there'll be 2, and everyone else they'll fight it out in training the next 2 weeks, and they put their hands up or take their hands down, either or.
Do you just you're saying lads that could come on there and lads that could play a part? Do you think Galway have the depth that they would have had 4 or 5 years ago when they won All Ireland? I had the program here in front of me, and look, I just looking at the names now, like TJ Brennan started. Owen Lawless, I think he's a cracking hurler. I saw him with NUIG. Like the depth, not that it weakens the team, but it's not a case of, like we'll say the Dublin footballers, Kev McManaman for years, he comes on and it's just, oh Jesus, he's coming on now, we need to pick him up. There's none of that.
I think there's 2 things, Ryan. I think one of the things is the likes of Owen Lawless, they're young guys and they're learning their trade, and they have massive potential, and hopefully they'll develop as we want them to. But the other side of that is the likes of Pádraig, Joseph, Dahi, they've moved on in years. They've, like, since the All Ireland, 6 years now, like they've 6 hard years put under their belts. So yourself that the legs won't, they're not forgiven, and so you need an impact off the bench. But then your problem with the bench is that it's so inexperienced that it's nearly a gamble for Henry and the management team, and they've in fairness, they've gone with Declan McLaughlin, TJ, Kevin Cooney. They're all new into it this year, Ronan Glennon's been there for his second year, but it's just the gap between the established players and the new players is so big. It's nearly too big to be introducing 4 or 5 new guys onto the pitch to try and change a game, and that's, that may be a problem going forward as well as we go deeper into the championship. If you pick up an injury or 2, and we see that with Carl, like we're lucky Tom Monaghan came in there, but like Tom Monaghan is now in the team, so who's replacing him, on the bench? And that's what Henry has to find, and like only they know what's going on in training. But like you've seen club level in Galway, and we have some really quality hurlers, but to get them from 19, 20, 21, and you speak about Liam Collins and their development and the whole lot, it's not going to happen quick. And the problem is we need probably a stronger panel if we want to contest an All-Ireland final and win it. And that's going to take a little while, and I don't know if we have that this year. But, we could be proven wrong. But I just think there's a gap between the established players and the guys that are pushing to come in.
Yeah, and I think depths of panels are more important now than ever before, because of the way the matches are and the round robin. And as bad as it is in Leinster, it's worse in Munster, because they batter each other in every game.
Just to bring it up there, Ryan, you say Munster there batter each other, and I've said it to a few people asked me, who's going to win the All Ireland this year? But is that where it's kind of set up nicely for Galway and Kilkenny?
I certainly think it is an advantage for the teams that come out of Leinster, because you look, right, take Limerick, for example, right? Sean Finn is out for the year. Actually, sorry, we can take Tip as an example, because I just saw it there earlier on. Garrod O'Connor is, I think he broke his ankle. Who else? Brian O'Mara, I think, is carrying injury. Cathal Barrett is after getting concussed. Don't know if he'll be starting the next day. Didn't start last weekend, which I think will have had a big bearing on the game. I've no doubt I'm leaving out 1 or 2 there.
Jason Ford.
Sorry, Jason Ford. Yeah, sorry, that should have been obvious. So like I think panels are being tested more, and Limerick after losing a few. Ed McCarthy's just back for Clare. The gap between games as well. It's not as if, right, physio says you need a 2-week break. You miss 2 games if you take a 2-week break. So it's just, there's pro. Look, this is a whole different debate now, but there's pros and cons with the championship. Is it good for the spectator? Yeah, it's probably not as good on your pocket because you have to pay to see it in RTE Go if you don't go to the game. But that's a whole different other debate.
Yeah, we'll not go down that.
But yeah, it can be good for the spectator. It can be good in one way for a player because if all else fails and you get knocked out early, well, you still have time to travel for the summer. For management teams and players as well, if you get injured, you might only be a 2-week injury, but you could miss 2 games. That could be your season gone. And then for management teams, geez, like it really tests depth. And I think that's what I suppose in one way with the championship structure the way it is now, it's really shown the league for what it should be. I think the league should be, yeah, it's nice to win it, but I think the league should be for bleeding or blood and players, because it's coming thick and fast. And lads that have played for 5 years to even 2 or 3 years, you know what you're going to get off them already. So yeah, sorry, I kind of tailored off there from your original question, but I certainly think that coming through Leinster, I don't think you can be unlucky, but I don't think it will test your panel as much as the Munster Championship, even though you play more games in Leinster.
Yeah, it does seem like there's an advantage there because like it's hard to believe in the Galway Kilkenny game if Galway were to win, they win one more game and they're in an All-Ireland final, which just sounds crazy at the minute, Joe.
Yeah, it does. But like, if you're management, you're kind of you're there's a bit of a smile to it because you're saying that you have a big test against in the Leinster final, both teams, and the winner is into a semi-final after a very competitive game, you would imagine, and then you've as you said you've another 70 minutes while other teams are bashing each other. You're sitting there waiting and getting guys back on the pitch and not this extra game, which I think is detrimental to some teams, and that this quarterfinal is tripping teams up. But yeah, that's just the way the cards fall. And I think Galway and Kilkenny, if you're the management of either, you're looking at that and you're saying, if we win this, we have to win this because we don't want to take a chance. I think the way the draw is a Tipperary in the quarterfinal if you beat Carlow, it loses the Leinster final. So that's not going to be easy. I know they have injuries, but Tipperary have played some fantastic hurling. They really have. And I know they had a blip the weekend, but you'd expect Liam Cahill, again, it's a reason to focus in again on when they look at that performance. And then is it who do you get in? Is it Limerick or Clare in the semi-final? That tip game could really take it out of you, and then you have to play, a Clare or Limerick who are going to test you physically as well. So I know it's an easier route, but that's just the way it is. And I think both managements will be honing in on that, to players that this is the way we want to go. This we have to get our performance and hopefully result in the Leinster final. Yeah,
and just 2 things I want to add there. Like the prime example of the Munster and Leinster Championship is Clare last year were brilliant. Could possibly have bet Limerick, went to a replay and then came out in the All-Ireland quarter-final and were terrible. Or was the semi-final, whichever one they Kilkenny bet them in, they were very poor.
They just about bet Wexford in the quarter as well.
Yeah, just got over the line. And what was I can't remember what my second point was. Yeah,
the Kilkenny game they did, it just showed the effects of it. And just to finally touch on Galway Dublin, because we have talked about a lot of areas of improvements for Galway ahead of the Leinster final, and they'll know that themselves. Joe, you touched on the point early on in the podcast of Henry zoning in now to the players that wasn't good enough and they have to improve, but I'm sure they will take something from character they showed in the second half.
Yeah, I think they will. They'll have to lean a little bit on that, and it's probably the only thing they can take, they didn't give up, and I think from listening to interviews with Henry afterwards, sometimes that was a worry he had as well, that they were going to come out and just be rolled over again in the second half, but they didn't. They showed something, and again, it goes back to maybe 2 or 3 players deciding, well, we're not going to go down like this, we're going to fight and see if we get back into it, and they had a little bit of belief. Now, again, Ryan goes back, Dublin just didn't score enough in the second half to keep them at bay, and Dublin whether they ran out of gas or Galway just, spotted what was going on and fixed things at half time. But you'd have to give credit to the substitutions that they made and that the energy they brought, as I go back to that, and the resilience of some of the leaders like Dahi, Joseph, Garrod that stood up and, drove it on. And like this team, as we go back, like you're missing David Burke, you're missing Johnny Cohn, Cahill Mannion, like obviously David's injured and Johnny's retired and Cahill's hopefully be back on the pitch, if not for the Leinster final, then after. But like they're huge players not to have, and as well as players, they're leaders, and maybe that's what was missing in the first 35 minutes the last day. We didn't have the leaders to quench the fires that was happening out on the pitch. But you have to give them kudos for the way they knuckled down. And I know Henry was probably disappointed from listening to him that they didn't win it in the end. He felt that the win was there. But I think, looking back at it, the players we haven't been beaten. We haven't been beaten in, like, am I wrong? Are the only team in the All-Ireland series that haven't been beaten? If that could be the case, I think they have 2 draws. I don't think they've been beaten. So, not that it'll count for much, but they're unbeaten. And that's something that they will, they should lean on and should use.
That's important too, Ryan, because you don't want to zone in on all the negatives from this performance either.
No, and like the public, look, it was the same when Dublin were doing well and won Leinster. Like it was always a case of it wasn't Dublin played well, it was the opposition played poor. And I think coming out of this weekend as well, Dublin were brilliant in the first half. I think Dublin played brilliant. I don't think it was Galway played bad. I don't think they were allowed to play well in the first half, just the way Dublin played and the way they came out and structured it. But in fairness to Galway, in the second half, they came out, they upped their physical presence around the field. They won those 50-50 battles, and they showed, I suppose, look, that the fire from Shefflin came out in them in the second half, and that will to win. And I remember the second point of what I was going to say there, that look, this is Shefflin's second year. He hasn't any silverware yet. So I think regardless of going through the direct route of winning it and the game less, or coming through the back door, I don't think he's interested in All-Ireland. I don't think he'll be interested in an All-Ireland until Leinster is finished, and then the attention will turn. Like he's not looking at the destination, he's looking at the journey along the way. And the next step for him is the Leinster final. And I think regardless of what way the year goes, I think if he can win a Leinster final and show that, right, I brought back a trophy to the West and across the Shannon, that will be seen as success, and I think he has to I won't say justify him being the manager and whatever goes along with it, but I think he will have to show that, yeah, do you know what, we've won Leinster and we're going the right route. We're making progress.
Absolutely, it's vital to show this progress. And are you supporting Galway now, Ryan, since you're living?
No,
not yet.
No, never. No, I'm still supporting Dublin in Leinster, and I suppose Tip in Munster.
So when the 2 of them are gone, so you can shout for Galway then.
We'll see. I'll shout for Mellows.
So Galway's next game there, as we mentioned, Kilkenny in the Leinster final Sunday week. That game looks like it's 4 p.m. anyways, and looks like it's going to be Croke Park. No official confirmation yet, but you'd imagine that's where it'll take place. The Galway Miners, an All-Ireland final this weekend. Joe, I'm sure you're looking on here now with a bit of satisfaction looking at some of these lads, because you've been involved with a lot of them through the academy.
Yeah, because I've been following them fairly closely, and I've been involved with the Galway Academy for the last, I suppose, 4 or 5 years. And last year we would have had the under-16s, Niall Canavan is the manager there, and I've been lucky enough to be involved with them. This group last year would have won both their competitions. We have 2 teams each year, so they won the A and the B as they're called. So and it's very interesting to see that guys from the B panel, or the second team as we prefer to call it, are actually on the team, are on the the minor team this year, so which was great to see. So, guys progressed and made such, progression that they've made their way onto the minor team. But again, I think that comes down to Fergal and his management as well, and the work they do with them, and even last year, like we would have had academy days, Fergal and his management would have been at those days, watching the guys playing. And this is a year out, this is going back to this time last year and up to July and August. So they obviously, they have their work done. But it is good to see, look at you obviously have the household name of Aaron Island, but there's some quality players there as well, Sean at full back, really good hurler, Sean Murphy, he's captain of the team, but all over the field, like Donica. And like a lot of these guys probably come into the team at the start of the year, the Leinster Championship. And this is the beauty of the Leinster Championship for Galway now, is that there was probably a lot of injuries in this panel at the start. So these guys came in, Fergal trusted them to play, and they've kept their places, and rightly so, because they've been very, very impressive, and guys like Jason Rabbit up, in the forwards, who's hitting average of 1-2, 1-3 a game, and he had a bad injury earlier on the year. He just about made it back for the Prez All Ireland's fine, but these guys have, from what I've seen of them, and from seeing them last year, they've made huge progression, but you'd expect that at that age as well. But no doubt Clare have as well, because I know we would have played Clare last year in the under-16 final, and they had the upper hand of us for 40-45 minutes of that game. They really had, and we came out on top in the end. But for 40-45 minutes, they were leading the game, So these guys will tear into Galway. I have no doubt. I can see it coming. They'll try and keep Aaron as quiet as they can. Perhaps play a sweeper and go at them. But if Galway keep doing what they've been doing, and stay being patient, they've quality all over the field.
The Aaron Island question, Joe, I just have to ask you from working with him, because you just have to be so excited about him. But how good can he be?
I suppose you look at him, he's a good lad. He's very grounded, quiet lad, no airs of grace about him. He's a real worker. He works hard at his game, and his skill set is huge. He's very athletic as well. He's great pace. He's a tall guy. He's massive potential. But look at 17, it's very hard to go, putting this, putting a name on what he could be or what he might be. I think he should, enjoy next Sunday and see where it goes from there. I think he has huge potential. But a lot of these guys have. There's a lot of these guys that you will see play, obviously, under 20 for Galway, but step into senior panels as well in time, but he's, for anyone that's gone to see him and watch him in flow, he's a joy to watch, and I'm just hoping that we see that as well on Sunday, and that he has a game that he can be happy with and that Galway can be happy with, and that's all you can ask of a 17-year-old, is that they perform to the best of their ability, and hopefully he will, and that Galway will follow suit,
Ryan, I don't know, have you seen much of the Galway minors this year, but they've looked really impressive. Like, most games, it hasn't really been too close. They have looked a step really above their opposition. Now there was questions asked them against Cork, but they did answer them. They've just looked really impressive throughout the championship.
Yeah, they have throughout the team. Like, they've a good Mellows lad wing back at O'Reilly, who I actually have to say I love. Rabbit, a full forward. He's just.
Does he remind you of Joe?
Oh, that is carbon copy. Even the run of him. The big blocky run, shoulders that you have to get a bus to get her around. But he's what, like, everyone will just feed off of him. I suppose thinking that we'd be chatting about this, and I really looked at the Clare, because I saw the Clare game the last day. And I was very impressed, but I did a bit of research, and the link to the 95 Clare team is phenomenal, right? You have Mike O'Halloran's son playing, you've James O'Connor's son playing, you've Fergal Hegarty's son playing, you've Ken Ralph's son playing. So there's 4. I think there's another one as well that I can't think of, but there's 4 straight away from the 95 team. And like, even you look at some of the players they have, like, there's a few questions this weekend, right? Owen Gunning, their captain, he's cornerback, but who's he going to mark? There's talk in Clare that he's going to go Mark Nyland. And if he does, like, he'll follow him anywhere. Depending on where he plays. If he plays in the half forward line, he's going to follow him there. If he doesn't follow him, who does he hand him off to? It could be Matthew O'Halloran, Michael O'Halloran's son. And then you look at the centre back that Clare have, James Hegarty. Like, he's not your typical centre back. He could easily bust up the pitch and score 3-4 points, and it's rare a centre back will do that, especially at minor. It's rare a centre back will do that. That they can bust up the pitch, a bit of a Kieran Carey kind of approach to it. But like, there's a few key players that Clare have, like Mike Sheedy in goal. He, without a doubt, in 4 years' time, even though goalkeepers generally make that step a little bit later than your outfield players, but in 4 years' time, when he comes out of under 20, he's going to be the senior goalie for Clare. He can do everything. He's like a cat in the goal and has that presence. He's always talking to his players, the players in front of him. But the key players, like the full back line, Owen Gunning, Ronan Keane and Owen Carey, they're rock solid. And to get a score off of them, or to break down and score a goal with the four of them, including the goalie, you're really, really going to have to work hard. And you know what, like, if you put a gun to my head, I think Galway will shade at the weekend, but which team will contribute more players to the senior level in 3-4 years' time? I think the Clare team is, and I think the future success of Clare, which I hope they don't get success, because a tip man cannot shout for Clare, especially one that grew up during the 90s. But I think they're going to be this present minor team is going to be the backbone of the success for the Clare team, the senior team of the future. Even you look at James's son, they give, I think it's him now, or it could be Mark O'Brien, but for like Mark O'Brien, their top scorer, and I think his nickname is TC, because he does everything like Tony Kelly, or sorry, TK, because he does everything like Tony Kelly. And like, when you look at it, Mark O'Brien's the top scorer, but he won a Hartley there last year with Ardscoil Reach. So they have a lot of danger men in the team that I think will certainly cause Galway trouble. But I do think, like I said, I do think Galway will shade it this weekend, but I wouldn't be surprised if Clare do. But I think 5 years' time, 6 years' time, 10 years' time, I certainly think this Clare team are going to contribute more to the senior setup.
Yeah, no, I Clare have a big chance in this. They really do. I think Galway are going to have to get their best. Really are. This Clare team is good. Like, I would have seen them twice last year under 16 level, and the improvement they made from the first day to the second day, and they make those improvements again. You know, and that's the thing about them, is they know about Aaron, they know about the Galway lads, and they're like, nothing better than a defeat to make you learn even more. You know, so but you'd hope Fergal and the management, and I know they'd have covered all bases, but this will go down to the wire. I think it will be tit for tat, and Ryan is right. Like, Clare have some exciting hurlers in that team. They really do. And they can play in a lot of positions, and they can play to a lot of different styles. And the one thing that they're physical, but they can hurl with it. They're hard men. They're, for young guys. But they can play ball as well. And Galway will have to be at their best to win it.
Yeah, and you look at the manager, Brian O'Connell. He's living in Oranmore, so he's sitting right in the middle of Galway hurling heartland. And then on his management team, you have Donald Maloney. He was it the 20s he was with, or the minors from 16 to 20?
He was with the seniors, yeah.
He
was with the seniors, yeah. And I think, before that, he was with the 20s. Like, so he's going to bring a lot of experience to that as well. And when you look, like, if you like to study form, like Cork and Clare, they played, and I think the score was 17 points to 12 in the round robin, or the group stages, and then Clare won in the Munster final. So if there's a barometer there, Galway, they bet Cork well, but at the same time, Cork were after coming off a defeat in the Munster final, so where they are just at a low after that, it's very hard to pick themselves up again. So I think that the two games in Thurles this weekend, the minor and the 20 game, I think they're going to be two crackers.
That's another factor as well, Ryan. Like by the time the second half starts in the minor, you could have 25,000 in for the under 20 game, because Offaly are going to travel in
Offaly will bring a big crowd.
Yeah, as will Cork. Cork support their underage quite well as well. So you could have 20,000 in there by the time those guys come out of the tunnel, for the second half. And that for a 17-year-old can be daunting enough too. And that's probably where management's, and I think obviously Fergal's played at a high level, Joe Canning is there, James Scahill, Mark Kearns, so, and obviously again on the Clare side as well, Donald, they have huge knowledge, but those could be the small margins, the dealing with that, not letting it affect you for 5 or 10 minutes in the restart could be the reason you win or lose it.
Yeah, certainly. And these events, and I will call it an event, but these events have such an effect on a 17-year-old. Like I've seen adults panting before they go out onto the pitch. Imagine what it does to 17-year-olds, and that taking that year off the minor as well, like it was 18-year-olds. I know you might think, sure, they're the same age, whatever. That year adds a lot to the young lad. Like, so this young lad might be in transition year, or might have just done his junior cert, So all of a sudden you're used to playing in front of 100 people at a minor game, and all of a sudden a minor club game, and then all of a sudden you go out and, like you said, there's 20,000 people there. 20,000 people can make noise, and especially Offaly people always make noise. So so it can be a daunting place. So I think what's very important is the management team to say, look, it's just another game.
Yeah, exactly, and be ready for it when it does happen.
And Joe, just finally, is it Galway's ruthless nature that's impressed you most throughout the minor campaign so far?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that now they've been teak tough at the back as well. As I said, I mentioned Sean Murphy. Like, Sean's very good full back. He's quick. He's aggressive. Garage King has settled in quite well. Thomas Blake. I suppose Dylan Quirk's a strong man and wing back as well. And obviously Dunick at centre back. Took a bad knock against Kilkenny, but was back in for the Cork game. And survived that and came through that. But midfield as well, Kedem. Killeen in midfield is a serious hurler, really quality hurler. But yeah, up front, I think Colin Burke has done a good bit of hurling, good bit of damage. Conor Gilligan, obviously we mentioned Jason Rabbit and Aaron. So, but they'll need all of those guys motored, and then they need an impact off the bench as well, and that'll be key as well. Is who gets maybe the biggest impact off the bench. If you're bringing on 3 or 4 subs who can contribute, but Galway do have quality there as well. So, but again, you're a Galway man. You're hoping upon hope they'll win it. You'd be confident they can get the result, but it won't be easy by any means.
Yeah, no, that's an exciting game to look forward to. 1 o'clock in Thurles on Sunday, and then you have the under-20 game between Cork and Offaly. That's all on our podcast for today. Thanks a million to Joe and Ryan for coming on.
Problem.
The Backdoor GAA Podcast for 2023 is now brought to you by Steede Motor Group. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, visit steedemotorgroup.ie. We are now delighted to announce our second sponsor of the podcast. Harper Finlay are a professional service recruitment company operating nationwide and are dedicated to helping people find their dream job.